Agenda is case number 02-18 from applicant Paul Cisternelli. I'm going to mess that up. With respect to the property located at 1 Renmar Avenue in Walpole, zoning district LMWRPOD3. This is an application for 3 variances under, there's a note on this, 8C of the zoning bylaw.
Oh, it doesn't say. 8C.
And an application for 2 special permits under section 12.3 of the zoning bylaw.
So 1 variance? Mine says nothing. 1 variance, 8C.
It says here, and you notice 3 variances.
Maybe I have the notice.
It's right there. Right there.
Oh, thank you. Now I got it.
Okay, so this is a continuation of the hearing. And I know from our last discussions that there was a number of comments from the town engineer from a letter dated April 3rd. So we were continuing tonight in order for the applicant to discuss and address those issues. And if you want, I can start with, we have since received a letter from town engineer, and we'll have you go through the details. And that letter from town engineer states, it's dated April 12th, says that the applicant's engineer, Paul D. Simone, has provided a letter April 11th, 2018. This memorandum addresses all of our comments made in the letter dated April 3rd, 2018. It is requested and recommended that Mr. D. Simone's response for items 4 and 5 per the copy of his memo here to attached provide a condition, become a condition of approval as they have agreed to. So, do you want to take us through some of the detail there?
The first 3, she was not aware that they had sign-offs. I don't know if you have heard the list in front of you.
Yeah,
Her
I do.
first 3 comments, they had already had sign-offs. 4 and 5, she was.
Yeah, you want to, just for the record, reintroduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul D. Simone with Colonial Engineering. So I talked to Maggie, and she said, you know, she wasn't aware that they had sign-offs for her first 3 comments. The 4 and 5, her comments on the drainage, I went over with her, and her suggestion was to add more stone to this overflow area infiltration trench that's along the retaining wall here. I said we would, in my letter to her, I said we would double it. That was perfectly fine with her. That gave us twice as much infiltration.
Double.
I think, and I dropped a copy off for you guys too.
I'm just looking for Maggie's. If we could just refresh the board's memory in terms of the first 3 items.
I think one was planning board. She mentioned planning board. The second one, I think, was conservation. And the third one was all the chemicals and stuff that.
Fire department, the list of chemicals, yeah.
And I forwarded her a copy of the chemicals and stuff that I forwarded to you guys, and she looked at it and said, oh yeah, that's perfect. So.
There it is.
What's that, Maggie's original?
Yep. Okay, so this is the 5th, 6th. So April 3rd. So number 1 is provided a list of chemicals proposed on site.
Which I forwarded to her. She said that was fine.
Okay. So the next item is the site plan approval.
which they
For the
have
planning board.
planning board sign off, which you have a copy of.
And then the next is the land disturbance permit.
Conservation, we have a sign off because we were below the required amount.
Okay.
to file.
Then
And
I-
then 4 and 5 was the drainage that I just discussed.
You just did 4, right?
4 and 5 is the same.
It's the exact same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4 indicates that there will be a .24 CFS increase on the rate of runoff in the post-condition versus the pre-condition. And then 5 is the area for infiltration system overflow should be enlarged as proposed, as the proposed area appears to be small.
Yeah. So we doubled that to take into both those 4 and 5, and she said that was fine.
Mr.
Last
Chairman,
thing on her list, I
Did
believe.
they double it, or did they just increase the riprap?
We
did-
doubled the size.
You doubled the size or increased
It
the
was 1 foot
riprap?
wide,
Yep.
and we made it 2 feet wide for the entire length.
Okay.
And we're hoping you're gonna from her, my discussion with her was, she would make sure that you guys put that in as a.
Condition.
Instead of changing the plan, as long as everybody here is aware that what has to be done during construction.
Yeah, so
And that'll be shown on the as-built.
the April 11th letter says, "Dear Maggie, in response to your comments, number 1, information has been provided to ZBA. Item 2, have the planning board sign off. And 3, that they have the conservation sign off. So for 4 and 5, during the construction, we will increase the size of the infiltration trench from 12 inches to 24 inches along the face of the proposed wall. This will double the size."
She said that was fine.
Okay.
Then the last item on our list, number 6, I believe, was the O&M,
Yep.
maintenance, operation maintenance. That was in the drainage calcs, she missed it. I gave her, I made a couple copies, I gave you and I gave her, and she said, yeah, she apologized, she just missed it. It was in the drainage calcs.
Yeah, so in the packet, so they're indicating that the O&M program is located in terms of sequence, after the compliance with the Mass DEP storm management standards. And Maggie's letter, doesn't refer to it. Just the general, that, the memorandum addresses all of her comments. Okay,
That's pretty much it.
so anything else that you wanted to submit this evening?
No, I think I gave you just about everything I have, copies of the plans, all the chemical stuff, the drainage calcs, everything that we have, we've given you.
Okay. See, there's many people from the public here, so I'll just open it up in case there's anybody from the public that wants to add any additional comments, information. And then members of the boards, if there's any additional
There's
questions.
nothing else new in there? Only Maggie's, 1 letter, and that's all we have,
That was the only thing new.
right?
Yep. So this is, and I can pass it around. So Maggie's,
This is new. It's dated April 12th, I believe.
this one?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the letter, and we just read that.
Oh,
Okay.
This is the letter from the engineer to Maggie, which I
Okay.
referred to,
Perfect.
and then I read
Yep.
Maggie's letter in response to that April 11th letter.
And Maggie's good with everything at this point?
Yeah, she made the one comment is
She wants the
the
conditions.
the condition for the response to 4 and 5, which is the increase.
Amy, you've got those conditions?
Yeah, that was the one that I just read. This is the, during the construction, we will increase the size of the infiltration trench from 12 to 24 along the face of the proposed wall. This will double the size.
We
Was the
can just write
response
as
to 4 and-
proposed
Yep.
by the applicant.
Yep.
And just to be clear, the changes that you're proposing there in response to those comments, those are not yet reflected on these plans? Or-
No, we didn't make any change to the plans, we were just hoping you put that as a condition so that the contractor will be aware of it. We will make him aware during construction also.
And we can put it, a condition, the as-built must show.
Right. That will show in the as-built when we're all done.
And there's no other changes to that?
No.
To that. Thanks.
Anything else? Any other
I'm good.
questions?
My comments were addressed earlier in the process.
Okay, so if there's nothing more, then would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I will.
Okay,
Make a motion to close.
second.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, since we have this? Yeah, that's true.
We closed it. I
Yeah.
just thought of it right when we voted.
I don't know what you're gonna
Not
ask
to
for.
mention 40
Yeah, it doesn't.
Thank you very much.
It's still, they still need three, they still need,
You're supposed to mention it though.
We
why,
do.
why would, if anything, you should mention it at the beginning,
No,
because.
that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
yeah.
Oh, at
I-
the
I
beginning,
did.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, because once we.
No, the minute we voted, I think four.
Yeah, right.
Four.
Yeah.
That's all, I just got it.
Yes.
Okay. So, deliberation. I don't know that there's a draft
I
decision.
didn't grab that one, it's just not signed there, just type away.
Excuse me, can I just ask one question?
Procedurally, yeah.
Just, how long would it be before you have it written up and signed, so we can bring it to registry?
Well, so our plan is to deliberate and perhaps vote on it this evening.
We
And
would
then-
appreciate that.
And then, after the vote is placed, then it's 14 days.
And we would receive the paperwork.
It has to be posted with the
Like an
clerk.
appeals period, correct?
Oh, there's a 20.
No. So there's 14 days, which we would have to file the decision with the town clerk.
Okay.
And then once filed, there's an appeal period
20 days.
that follows,
20
right?
after that,
Yeah.
right? So after your initial 14, we could actually start land clearing?
Well, that's,
your own-
so
At
again.
your own risk.
That's
No,
at your
no, I
own risk.
understand.
Somebody might dance on in here, you know?
No, I understand that. Okay, very good. So 14 is the minimum and.
14
they
is,
appeal.
14 is when it
For
has
the
to be
decision.
filed in, with the clerk.
It won't
Okay.
take that long.
No, I was gonna say, you'll notify us, right?
You
can-
receive a copy of the decision.
You can always call her. and-
Yeah, okay. Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, bye, Rennie.
See you guys.
See you. Bye, Bobby.
Thank you.
So, I think we should start with the variances, because it has the higher standard.
Sounds like a plan.
So the first variance is under 6V1 in sections 12.3A through 3B to allow the proposed commercial building to be constructed on an existing lot containing 38,675 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required. Do we want to take them one at a time, or do we?
No, let's take them one at a time, because
I agree. I've got to get this book in order.
Okay, so, under the variance standard, we have to look at whether owing to the shape or topography of the lot, that, they cannot comply with the literal enforcement of the bylaw.
So we talked about this at the, I think the first hearing, and it had to, I think you looked back to see what the zoning was when the lots were created, and didn't you go back to 1973 when these were,
I don't recall, we haven't done that, no, I'm sorry.
okay, I know there was a discussion about that, so it's an old lot, it's been there.
Yep.
So I think that's the reason why we could allow this variance.
Yeah, so I don't think we're saying there's a pre-existing nonconformity. You're just saying that the lots during this period of time were created such that
It's not a self-imposed hardship, they didn't cut off a piece of it, so a variance is, you know, could be done, could be considered for that.
right. Is there any other factors? So if we're going through.
I think that's the key factor with respect to the size of the lot, because there's really, we can talk about the narrowness of the lot and such, but that's not really, to my mind anyway, related to the area of the lot.
The area of the
Yeah,
lot.
might be more relevant to the setback that
Mhm.
was requested. You know, and to literally comply with the bylaw, they would have to go out.
Well, and also, some of this, isn't this all wetlands too that's adjacent?
I don't think it's wet, it's across the street this way.
But in the back somewhere there was.
High in the back.
Walpole Road.
Mhm.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah,
That's across the street.
it's the across the street,
Yeah.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say it's a very odd-shaped lot. You have some serious topography going on there. You have a 200 elevation here, which goes up to the street, or down to the street, pardon me, down to 180. That's a 20-foot difference. So I think that is rather unique for a situation. We have a non-residential building being proposed.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking in terms of if there was available property adjacent to it, to acquire it, it wouldn't alter necessarily the buildable area of the property because of the slope of the property. In other words, they could have increased area, but it wouldn't necessarily change how that lot would be used,
Right.
even though the area was under ownership.
Correct, other than having, reducing the size of the building, which they indicated would be an economic hardship, so I think that's met.
Yeah.
And I think it's a tough spot to put an applicant in to require them to acquire property, because then they're essentially over a barrel. Whoever owns the land that they need to acquire can name their price if they really need, you know. And I think that's just, it's not that would also create an economic hardship.
Mhm. So, did we have other factors you wanted to include? You know, in terms of the literal enforcement as well, I mean, it would render the property unused, and I don't think the intent of the bylaw was to render property significant, right? We're talking about 38,000 compared to 40,000 would be otherwise unused, compared to having a property that is slightly smaller than the intent of the bylaw.
And when it was created, it was a buildable lot,
Right.
so.
Yeah,
things have-
so-
Things have changed. So it was created as a buildable lot, and we're treating it now as a buildable lot.
Right, but it just wasn't built on at that time,
Right.
therefore it's not a pre-existing non-conforming.
And I think the information you were referring to earlier is in the submission that the applicant made with a copy of the earlier decision.
Yeah.
There's some text inserted there that talks about
Yep.
the requirements in place at the time that the lot was created, so we can refer to that as well.
And that can always be mirrored in the new decision as well.
So do we want to put that one to the vote?
We can put it as a condition to use the other decision too.
It would be a condition, which is we'd put the narrative, so the draft narrative that would go out would include some of the similar language from previous findings.
Okay.
So it wouldn't necessarily be a condition, it'd be a finding.
All right. Okay, so I'll make a motion on behalf of the applicant to grant the variance under 6B1 in sections 12(3)A-3B to allow the proposed commercial building to be constructed on an existing lot containing 38,675 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is the variance under 6B1 to allow the proposed building to be constructed with a setback of 25 feet where 50 feet is required.
Once again, we use the lot, shape of the lot, slope.
Yeah, and I think it's
It's almost
specifically,
the same
that
for
it's-
both sections, actually, I think.
right. I think here, the very narrow rectangular shape of the lot is what lends itself to not being able to position a building.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you would end up with if you abide by the literal, well, first of all, you wouldn't be able to build a substantial building. It would end up being more of a hallway than
It would be
type
economically
structure.
not viable to build a building with
Right.
within the required setbacks in a lot that narrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's impossible not to occur because you have two streets on each side of it.
And then secondly, well, I don't know if we need the slope.
What's the required setback from the rear? Do you know? I see it's at 20, it looks like 25. Do you know what the required is?
I do not yet.
I'd say it on the plans.
Yeah, 25
got
is,
25.
so it's, the rear, it's right on the line, so they can't push it back any further.
So then also that's a finding.
Look the same.
Yeah. And they're proposing the 25 feet. Yep.
So that's a good finding, John.
Okay. Unless there's other discussions? So I'll make a motion to grant the variance under 6B1 to allow the proposed building to be constructed with a setback of 25 feet where 50 feet is required.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the variance under 6B1, note 9, to allow outside storage area for equipment to be located with a setback of 10 feet where 50 feet is required.
He showed us where it has to go.
Sorry.
Well, again, the existing lot being such an odd configuration makes it very, very
Right.
difficult to comply with that
It's
setback
right next to
requirement.
the retention basin, you see it,
Mhm.
John? The
Mhm.
corner, yeah. You couldn't park on the slope.
What's that?
Can't park on the slope.
Right.
Right, so combination of the slope of the land on that end of the property, which does not lend it to parking, and then the tapering, narrow shape of the lot,
The lot itself, yeah.
makes it impossible for them to comply with the literal
Right.
bylaw.
Mhm.
And again, you know, I mean, the nature of the business, I mean, this business or other businesses, it's common, you know, in this district to have outside storage. So to prevent them to have any form of outside storage in order to comply with the literal bylaw would create an economic hardship.
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, you could even add something to that, that it should be, the area should be suitably screened from the street, since it is going to be closer. I don't think that's a hardship.
With what?
A slatted fence, for instance. They're probably gonna want a fence anyway if they're gonna be storing materials of value.
To Does he have a fence on? No fence in your shed? He is paving.
Proposed gate,
Oh, so it must be fenced.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a fence along there.
Okay.
Proposed
It's a
6 foot high
fence
solid.
screening.
As shown on the plan, you just
We could ask them to put slats in it. I presume it'll be a chain link.
slats?
Yeah.
Uh,
Those green strips.
So
Green,
it's-
black.
You wanna tell him what kind of fence to put?
No, just that, if they're gonna be so much closer that they can't put any screening and buffering in front,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out there's an opportunity to provide for some screening.
So he's saying make the
Yeah.
fence
Either-
such that it's solid visibly.
Either we could say, a screened fence or a vegetated buffer. Leave it up to the applicant. But either way, there should be something, because it is 10 feet from the
Street.
the
Property line.
sideline, or the front line is, when 50 is required.
Pretty close.
Right, and the town should get something.
Note on the plan does look like it says proposed 6 foot high solid fence screening.
Yeah, so-
I think the neighbors want solid myself. There's a
Yeah,
rental house right there.
I would be comfortable just conditioning the, proposed 6-foot-high solid fence screening as indicated on the plan. I mean, all we're asking for is what they have on their plan, so
But I think it's good just to, particularly if other people look at something like this in the future and they come in
I
saying they
agree.
want to build 10 feet, we can say, this is what we required. So, some sort of screening, either fence screening or vegetated buffer, whatever the applicant wants to do.
yeah, and I'm just going by the indication of their plan, I'm just conditioning exactly what's on their plan, so that's why I feel comfortable, because we didn't discuss it more during public hearing,
Acknowledge and confirm.
Right.
yeah.
But it also protects the board in the future if somebody else comes in and says they want to put something 10 feet from the property line and they have a big rectangular lot and they don't have this.
Yeah.
This situation.
I'm okay with that,
So we putting,
a condition.
right, proposed 6-foot-high solid fence screening as indicated on the plan / do anything else, like, you wanna put the vegetation?
Or vegetated buffer, if that's, whatever they want, but there should be some sort of screening.
Okay.
And we should tie it, I mean, it's shown on the plan, but maybe tie it to screening of the outdoor storage area.
Yeah, because that's ultimately what we're asking for, a screening of the outdoor. I
Okay.
agree with you. Anything else? So, I'll make a motion on behalf of the applicant to grant the variance under section 6B1, note 9, to allow outside storage area for equipment to be located with a setback of 10 feet where 5 feet is required.
50 feet is required.
Well, 50 feet, sorry.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now we have the two special permits. The first one is special permit under 12.3B to allow storage and handling of toxic or hazardous materials on premise in the quantities greater than those associated with the normal household use. And I don't know if we want to address the second permit first, because we're gonna be talking about impervious surface, and I don't know whether we want to talk about the impervious surface first, as it might impact the hazardous or toxic.
So I'm actually okay with the first one, the
Okay.
Hazardous materials, because I think the applicant has provided a list and, they know what they're doing as far as they've met with the fire chief, and we're good on that. I do have some concerns about impervious, though, going from 15 to, 15's required, and they're at 44. So I want to discuss that, and I recognize that it's going to take 3 votes to pass. So
Right.
I'll just say right now, I've got concerns about that one.
Okay. So if if they're not interrelated, then let's continue to take up the toxic or hazardous materials. Then, yeah, I agree in terms of the list of materials that they provided. You know, again, their criteria is that, you know, pedestrians to the site, you know, vehicles and pedestrian traffic, I don't think that's related. Residents, employees, and customers to adversely, would not affect the number of residents or employees. Shall comply with the dimensional requirements in the zoning, you know, except as granted through variance, they otherwise comply with dimensions. So I think we get down to, you know, dangerous to the immediate neighborhood through fire or shall create noise, dust, heat, smoke, fumes, odor, glare. That would be a nuisance or serious hazard to the neighborhood. And character, of course, to the neighborhood. You know, I think the general area is consistent with this type of industrial or business-oriented use, and the storage of these materials is consistent with that use for the neighborhood. And I think the point you made, that the fire chief has reviewed it and they've articulated the items to demonstrate that it would not present a serious hazard to the neighborhood.
Might I suggest, Mr. Chairman, to that, you put the condition saying that shall be stored inside and in compliance with any and all regulations of the fire department. Therefore, those materials will not be susceptible to outside, being hit by a vehicle, for instance, or vandalism. And then if we say in compliance with the fire department, then the fire department will therefore inspect and confirm that the storage is up to the standards of the department and the town.
Right, right. The application says premises, and I think it's a good clarification that by premises, we mean inside the building. I would agree with that.
Yeah. I'd also like a condition limiting the quantities to the amounts that the applicant has specified, so as set forth in their application.
Okay.
They also indicated that they will have a spill response kit available, but that may be covered by the incorporation of compliance.
I would put it in. I think that's a good idea.
You know, including the items specified by the applicant. They have indicated 2 to 4 foot long absorbent socks or tubes, 10 absorbent pads or pillows, bucket of oil, dry granules, disposable bag and tie. So we can add that into the decision, but just, you know, conditioning based on their representation as to what's going to be on site and also how they would respond to spills.
Yep. So I understand the conditions to be 3. 1, the location, that it's inside the building. 2, that the types and quantities be limited to what has been presented and approved by the fire department. And 3, the response procedures will be followed as presented and approved by the fire department. Is that
Right,
the right
and
understanding?
in conformance with other applicable law or something like that, to cover any DEP issues that they might have to deal with.
So, anything else? So on that, you wanna make a motion with those conditions?
Sure, give it a shot. I'll make a motion on behalf of the applicant to grant the special permit under section 12-3.b to allow the storage and handling of toxic or hazardous materials on premises in quantities greater than those associated with the normal household use, subject to the following conditions. First, that all such toxic or hazardous materials be stored inside the building on the premises. Second, that the quantities stored shall not exceed those represented by the applicant, shall not be of a type or exceed the quantities other than those specified by the applicant. And third, that the applicant shall maintain a spill response kit on site at all times. and otherwise manage the toxic or hazardous materials consistent with all other applicable laws.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So third is special permit under sections 12(3)(a)(3) and C for a non-residential use to allow 44% of the lot area to be rendered impervious where 15% is allowed. So I know you had concerns, so,
So, one of the concerns is that the building itself comes in at about 15%. But it seems like, you know, all this, the paved area, and there's a lot of it on the lots bringing it up to 44%. And I don't know if there were other options such as, you know, a pervious parking or coverage, which might solve that problem, but I got the feeling that it was almost like, well, we're already over at 15%, so let's go 44. But that also changes things such as all the drainage calculations and complicates that. So, although according to the town engineer, she was okay with what they were proposing, but still, going from 40 up to 44 when 15's allowed seems like a big stretch. So. You're looking for the 15% for the building?
yeah, no, I'm looking here, because it's showing proposed 17.6%, what's the structure, right?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
did a quick calculation before, and I think maybe it's 17 or 15. But, you know,
Yeah, no, your point's still,
and I don't know traditionally what how the board's looked at that issue, but, you know. And I don't know what's been done at other buildings in the area there, if they've been given a special permit to allow it. They have.
I think in the prior decision for this site, that relief was granted, if I understand correctly.
Yeah,
The earlier decision.
it
So,
was.
not that, I'm just pointing that out, I don't know that sways it one way or the other.
mhm.
But I think we would have,
It being a special permit would require all 4 affirmative votes.
Yeah.
one concern I would have with making, oops, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know what kind of pavement he could have under heavy equipment that would be impervious. You know, I don't know
That's a, you know.
what's out there
that's a
nowadays
good-
that can handle heavy equipment.
That's a good point.
You know, I mean, I know a car you can
Right.
throw,
The
there's that
pavers
new,
and.
right,
yeah, Okay,
but I don't know with,
Suzanne,
and
you
he's
just
got
solved it.
heavy
You
equipment.
just solved it for me.
okay. Well, I mean, he does, he has
I
huge
don't-
heavy
No,
equipment.
he's, right.
And moreover, I mean, you know, we looked at the drainage calculations, and they are recharging all of that impervious surface, so I'm also, I agree with Suzanne's perspective that, that there may not be a solution that's a pervious solution. But even so, if I look at it from a harm perspective to issuing the special permit, what we're trying to prevent by the impervious surface is the stormwater runoff. And so they have a system that
Addressing it.
is addressing it and compensating for that issue. If it were a situation of a variance, I think I would tend to agree with you. But in this case where it's a special permit and they found a way to address the harm or risk.
I'm after the point that this is heavy equipment, and if it was just a residential parking
A regular
area.
car, right, can handle it.
That would be
Right.
different, putting a pervious
Right.
parking area, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's in the industrial area. It is also in the water protection district, so
No, I think your questions are a good one. I mean, you know, we're not looking to just increase it from 15 to 17. We're going from 15 to 44. That's more than doubling. I mean, I think it's reasonable. And then also with respect to, you know, the overlay district and other cases that we might hear. I mean, you know, to say, you know, are we considering this carefully? And so I think your questions really helped me.
No, I would agree with that, and my concern would be, in addition, for the pervious surfaces, would be, given the equipment that's stored and the fact that there's gonna be hazardous materials on site, that should it spill onto the pervious surface, it would then not be captured by the sediment oil separators that they've got, and they seem to be prepared to capture that sort of material in the event of a release, so,
And
I
I
think I
think
would
also,
prefer that solution rather than a direct pathway to the soil and then whatever.
oh, that makes sense.
I'd also recommend the board cite that the O and M plan that they submitted be adhered to, and that mandatory, we can use the word mandatory, but the maintenance of the structures, because they do need to be cleaned on a regular basis. And I think that should be memorialized.
That's all in this decision,
Correct.
that you were gonna incorporate, or someone
Well,
was going to incorporate? You
The
said
operation
we
and
can't
maintenance
just
plan, that the
incorporate.
town engineer had mentioned it earlier, and
Like all the cleaning and the training with
Exactly.
the help and all that was in this decision.
so that should be
You know,
referenced.
The gas traps and all that.
Mhm.
That's why I thought we could just add it as a condition, this decision, but
Yeah, I think it can be a condition that the,
any
that the
conditions.
site
in-
is maintained according to the operations and maintenance plan presented at public hearing.
Yeah. We can cite the materials.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think for this one is we need the conditions 4 and 5 from the
Yeah, yep.
town engineer as well, since it's related to drainage.
Yeah, just to clarify, there's a single condition, which is to increase it, which addressed her point, so it
Okay,
just
right,
will be one
okay.
condition. The other thing to that point, you know, another reason in terms of the finding of the decision, the stormwater has been reviewed by town engineer under the original application and again during this application. Furthermore, adjustments to that can't talk tonight, stormwater management plan. You know, there's been adjustments. So in other words, you know, I think there's been some careful consideration and adjustments to ensure that, you know, that the recharge is going
The
to be
drainage will be adequate.
adequate, right?
Yeah. You will find we have one of the best engineers for drainage around.
Yes.
I've known Amy for almost 30 years, so
Then you
I
know.
already knew that.
I call her the queen of drainage, because she's awesome at it.
And the drainage requirements in 2018 are more strict than 2007, so,
No.
Just there.
Which she applied, and that's
Right,
why he's
right.
doubled, I would imagine.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. All right, so I'll make a motion on behalf of the applicant to grant the special permit under section 12-3, point A, point -3, -B, and C for a non-residential use to allow 44% of the lot area to be rendered impervious, where 15% is allowed, with the condition that during construction, the applicant increase the size of the infiltration trench from 12 inches to 24 inches as shown on the plan presented at public hearing, along the face of the proposed wall. And that increased size be included in the as-built plan. Secondly, that the site be maintained in accordance to the O&M plan program presented at public hearing.
Can you also add the conditions from the decision from September 19, 2007?
Do we have those?
We have them right here, so. I mean, there's just things in that Amy can put in as necessary.
Just read them off so we all know what we're voting on. Okay, and then, so the third condition is, as stipulated by the applicant in the public hearing, the applicant shall comply with the provisions of section 10D3D, incorporating the requirements of zone 3.
That's the overlay.
That's the overlay.
So
And then-
you'd wanna word it 12, whatever, it's 12 now instead of 10, right?
Yeah, I think that's
I thought it was
the,
10 for so many years, it messes me up.
yeah. And then also, as stipulated by the applicant at the public hearing, the applicant shall construct the interior of the floor drains as presented at the public hearing and to be indicated on the plan.
Which they will.
So that's the motion and the conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, you're done in that case. So then the other items on the agenda is the minutes. Turn it over to you. You wanna take us through minutes?
I'll take you through the first couple. So we'll start with those of March 7th, 2018. Is that one?
It's February 21st. You can take whatever.
Oh,
you want.
sorry.
Which one are we starting, does it matter?
That doesn't matter to me.
Two, right?
Okay, we can start with
Three.
February 21st, might as well. Take it over.
Yeah.
The only changes I had were the discussion of the Union Street CME matter. Sixth line down, the first word is conservation. Just insert the word commission after conservation. And then I think you can strike the word them in that line.
Okay.
And then on the second page, I don't know who this Fitzpatrick guy is, but
It's what? What did you get?
it should be Fitzgerald.
It does say Fitzpatrick twice.
That's okay. I've been
Hey, at
called
least
that.
you went
many times.
Irish on you. We'll give her that.
So those are the,
Sorry
those are the
about
only
that.
changes that I had to that set of minutes.
Yeah, all this stuff. You're abstaining, right?
That's me.
Make a motion to accept February 21st, are you done?
Yep. Second?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Amy, John's on it, don't forget. Okay. Get in trouble.
So it'd
And
be,
then March 7th.
so it's three to, right, three in favor, one abstain
Yep.
is the vote.
And then for March 7th, at the bottom of case number 01-18, where the motions are being recited, Zucker made a motion to close the hearing, seconded by Murphy. The motion carried. That should be 5-0-0.
Oh, that's right.
And-
No Lee.
Right.
Okay, that's
and
on
then-
both.
And the same
That's
on
on-
the next one.
Alright.
Look above it, too.
Yeah. And,
we on?
Right
the
above it.
next-
Probably on
Right.
two.
260
There's
of those.
two motions on the 318.
It can never be a 6.
Yeah, there's one on 218 also, at the very bottom of,
I think all,
Two.
then all of them
Yeah,
need
you
to be,
can't do 6.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
so I'll change all of them on the,
Yeah.
on all of them.
Although,
Yep.
the very last one, 418, I think that's correct, it's 5-0 with,
Is that the one where I
with
took
John.
off?
That's the
Yes.
one I
Yes.
took
Right.
off,
Yep.
that's why.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, this was the snow day, that's right, okay.
Yeah, that's the day I
No,
took
just a
off.
super majority, because you only have 4. So that's 548.
And then the only other line edits would be on item three, or case number 3-18, page 2.
Oh, yep,
In the third line down, setback where 30 is needed, I've just
Feet.
insert feet.
It could be 32, right?
Two more lines down from that, Hiltz is Hiltz. See, catches you
I do that
sometimes
too,
too.
yes.
2/3.
That's-
You can call me Fitzpatrick.
Madam Clerk. Oh,
Madam
that's,
Clerk, that's-
that's Bob now.
And that's all I have on the March 7th, 2018.
Very interesting.
And I'll need to review the April minutes, or others can do the same.
So she's got all those 6 zips corrected?
Yeah.
Yep,
Did we make, is everybody done with that one? Want to make a motion? We all set?
Sure, yep.
sure.
Make a motion to accept March 7th?
Second? All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
You voted on one. I think you voted on one.
On those minutes?
Didn't he vote on?
March 7th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the day I took off.
Wait,
Yeah, so you,
Okay,
You did vote
okay,
on that, on Margaret Camo's house.
do
okay.
we want to reconsider?
Yeah, I approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So 4-0.
Although I don't even know who lives there anymore. Oh, this girl is cray-cray. I don't even like reading this. June 6th. Oh, Jane was absent for this one. We don't have the architect's name for the drive-through, for the, what is that when you do with your shoes? Cleaners.
Yeah.
We should look on the plans.
okay.
Should look on the plans, Amy, they might have it on there. Better be on there.
So you need
think
the
it-
last
yeah.
name.
Yeah, I
It
think
should
it,
be on
I
there.
went back to the tape, it was mumbled, but I'll try to.
Yeah,
look on the
but
plan.
it might be on the plan.
Could be.
Well, you can always just buzz Dan.
I think I did. I don't think he replied to me.
We'll track it down.
Yeah. It just should be on there, I mean, you know. It is the strangest thing, if you guys have never tried this yet,
No.
it's really strange. I did the other one down the street from, a couple of buildings down.
Oh, the dry cleaning.
Yeah, and the guy like jumps out at you, it's like strange. I just had to try it once.
I spotted a mistake on mine. It's the dry cleaning, not cry cleaning.
It says cry.
It says cry cleaning business. I just found that.
A tough lot.
This last one was crazy. under the, page 3, SIP plan approval. Site
Site,
plan.
found it.
David Allison says gas, no issues.
Has.
Thank you. I actually had a planning board member ask me, have you ever made an amendment to a site plan before? And I said, negative. Made me nervous.
So is that, I'm just on page 1, is that right? Applicant has been renting U-Hauls,
Yep.
Yeah.
that's plural? Okay, that's what was said.
It's also on
We
page
should
1.
probably write all the stuff, cause it's vans, trailers, trucks, cause I asked how many vehicles,
Okay.
but I don't, that's probably not even in there that
But
I asked
wait,
her.
are they all under U-Hauls, or do you want?
She presented to us that it said, I asked the question, I don't know, is it in here? No. But I did ask how many, cause it said plural, and I said, what is the amount? And she, I don't even know if she answered me. But I remember the case said vans, trucks, and trailers. Cause I remember thinking, how is she getting away with this with no
Did she say 8 to 10?
permission?
It's
For
10.
one, but then the other ones were not
Yeah,
numbered.
it's 10 rentals a week.
Yeah,
I have it right here.
that's what I
I
thought.
thought there were 20 vehicles on site.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to amend been renting you? No, well, that wasn't the context in which it was asked, right? Okay, I don't have any other
It's probably fine to
issues.
leave it like that because they're coming back.
Right,
Just have on the first page, under the supercars,
Mm-hmm.
the 5th line down,
Yep.
at the very end, Young stated that 4 years, lowercase, ago,
Okay.
and then she instead of her, she and Santos. And then on 6-18 on page 2, 5th line down, the lot is 16,000 square feet, and the proposal is
Yes.
for a one-way rental.
any other?
I'm good.
So I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of April 4th as amended.
Second.
With changes.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, if no other business, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for April 18th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.